Meet our 2004 Harley Softail. I've just put a used engine in this baby. It's just an 88B big twin. It's an engine B, so it only fits Softails, and the big twin A's fit on Dana's. Keep watching to learn how to burnish your piston rings on a Harley big twin. So we're going to show you how to burnish your piston rings. I just purchased this used engine, and the guy I bought it from rebuilt the pistons, so he put new piston rings in it, he cleaned the pistons, he sent the valves out, they got resurfaced, they got new valve seals, stronger valve springs. He also put a slightly wilder cam in it, and new lifters, new push rods. There's a process to burnishing in your piston rings on the freshly honed cylinder walls, and I'm going to show you how he has relayed information on how we do that properly. So I purchased this Harley with 63,000 miles on it. It had a 88 bored out to a 95 big twin as it still has Vance & Hines pipes, has the K&N air filter. It had a 570 lift cam in it. And anyways, while I was driving it in the interior, I bent some push rods. Haven't pulled that engine apart because I didn't have time. So I just went ahead and I found a used engine on the island, and the guy that was selling it was able to do a little rebuild on it and refreshen the engine. 525 lift cams in this 88 factory size engine. So now that I have this spare engine, I will be able to go and work on my previously bored out 95 and potentially stroke it. Haven't fully figured out what I want to do there yet, but we're definitely going to get that engine to be a lot more wild. This engine is just going to be something that's more reliable, so I can go on road trips for this summer and drive it to work and back and save some fuel on the Cadillac, driving the Harley. So the first step for starting your bike, you want to make sure you have all your fluids up to the proper level. Engine oil, primary fluid, transmission fluid. My engine is carbureted, so I'm going to need to pull the choke to get it started. First step, we're just going to run it for 1 minute between 1,000 and 1,500 RPM. I don't have an RPM gauge or anything that can read the RPM externally, so we're just going to try to have it just above idle. Don't crank on it, just as long as it's just above idle, then we're good, and I'll shut it right off after 1 minute. Fresh choke cable.
Scary thing.
Why is it always scary? I didn't rebuild this engine, so I should be less scared, but I feel like I'm more scared because I've never worked on a Harley before. So we're in neutral. My choke is pulled out. Let's just pray to God that she doesn't want to rip off on me. Maybe I'll hold it like this. Let's just do this. guessing that was a minute. I was gonna try and time it and everything, but looks like I got some exhaust leaks because I wasn't sure on how to get those exhaust gaskets in there without them falling out on me. So I just tighten those down a little bit. Now we can just go over it while it cools and check our oil level, check our exhaust, make sure it's not leaking, and tighten up anything that you think might be causing issues. Something to calm the nerves when you're starting your Harley. Good old-fashioned can of Lucky Lager. Vancouver Island Special, original. Okay, so I added a little more engine oil to it, and I've gone around my exhaust bolts that go to the head. A couple of them are slightly loose, and the other two are pretty tight. So not loose, but I just gave them a little more. And look for oil leaks. I had a little drip coming off of my oil drain, but I think that might have been there from before. And yeah, so now we're just gonna go ahead and let it run for 2 minutes this time at 1,000 to 1,500 RPM. Yeah, let's make this rumble. It's been sitting for at least 5 minutes now. 2 minutes down, let it sit for 5 more minutes.
Okay guys, so we just did our first 1 minute above idle run, let it sit for 5 minutes, and then we did 2 minutes just above idle, and let it sit for half an hour now. So we're just going to do the exact same thing. I'm gonna try and just play with the RPMs a little bit to try and keep them, 1,500 to 1,000, just so they're going up and down a tiny bit. And we're supposed to do that for 5 minutes. Then I'm going to let the bike sit overnight. Next steps, I will be letting it run for 5 minutes, and then I will take it for a 10 to 15 minute drive. And while I'm doing that drive, I don't want to go over like 3,000 RPM, 3,500 max when I'm on my first test drive. So I'm gonna go for like a 10 to 15 minute drive, and you want your RPMs to be going up and down, so you don't want to just sit at one load, cruising at one speed. So drive around in the neighborhood and take some corners and get that RPM range going up and down and changing gears. After that, you let it cool again, and then from there on, I'm good to basically drive it. I still don't want to go over 3,500 RPM for like at least 200 miles, according to the engine rebuilder that did this engine. Yeah, so for 200 miles, I'll just drive it, not on the highway, up and down RPM ranges as best I can. So I'll take side routes if I have to not go on a highway, and then after that it will be done. So here we go, 5 minutes of 1,000 to 1,500 RPM. Let it sit now until tomorrow morning. I'm actually gonna wait until I get home from work till tomorrow, because I gotta go to work early and I don't want to wake up the whole neighborhood. And then I'm gonna drive it, let it cool, and drive it 200 miles, like I said before. And then I'm gonna change the oil. They say like 100 miles, change the oil, and then change it again at 500 miles. I'm using Big Twin synthetic with I think he put a Canon filter on. I have a AMS oil filter, and I'm gonna change it around 200 miles, and hopefully we'll call her good. And if shit hits the fan, then you guys will be the first ones to find out on Netfix when I'm installing that engine, because I blew this engine up. Hope you like this video on burnishing the piston rings. Comment down below, follow us, like us, subscribe, and let me know if there was a different way I could have burnished those pistons that you think is better.